Working on month 9 again. I have pre-assembled everything except putting this last row on and doing the bottom sashing. Now, as you can see, I'm using my iPad so I can make it large enough that I can actually read all those little letters. So we're going to start by putting this together. There's many different ways to do it. Pick one that makes you happy, and I'll do it the way that I finally figured out worked for me. I take this piece, flip it around, put my next piece on, which is E. I don't like to have to start and stop so many times, and I tried several different ways, but this just seemed to be the most sensible for me. But you do whatever you're comfortable with. Now we're going to F. So again, I'm going to bring this around. We need an O. Getting late in the day, nothing is wanting to cooperate with me. We'll take this off. Now keep in mind that each of these are going to be almost 9 feet long. This becomes a very, very large quilt. It's going to be very difficult for me to show you how to do the borders, but we're going to at least try to check out the first border to make sure that the dimensions that they have are correct. Everything else has been correct so far, so I can't imagine that we'll have a problem, but I would still rather show you at least putting on one border. And once you see what we're dealing with, you'll understand why I'm not going to try to show you all 4 borders. I think if you've been sewing for any length of time, you understand borders. And I'm always available if you have any questions. If we can't answer the questions by Facebook, we can do email or even a phone call. And I am in Florida, if that makes a difference to anyone. Another C. An O. Don't forget to check your bobbin thread and your needle. just for this quilt, I am on bobbin number 5. And I do use the pre-made bobbins. Now we're going to F. And I did not press these until I had them on the row. It just seemed like it was not necessary. We need an E. An O. And an M. Now I'm going to show you how I did sew the sashing on. You want the sashing on the bottom and your quilt row on top. Reason being, you need to be able to see all of your pieces. Now I'm going to double check my row. I put row numbers on each one so I could keep them in the correct order, and I did find it was a little easier for me if I kind of rolled it up, because this is a lot in your lap at one time, or at least it is mine. And where I have moved my work surface, I'm a little crowded, and I did mark here so I knew which side that I needed to put my sashing on. So we're going to try to match up all of our corners and all of our points as best we can. And I will tell you right now that mine did not work out as well as I would like to have seen them. But I've also had to rush to get through this quilt so I could have it done in time for teaching. I didn't have 9 months to get it done. I had 2 weeks. And as you notice, I do have my needle down this time because there's a lot of pulling on this, a lot of weight, and you don't want things moving around just because you're getting a different handhold. Now I do like to go ahead and match these corners where the sashing joins. Excuse me. That gives me an idea of when I'm to a critical point, because this, you're just making sure that these points are right, because what's underneath is just a straight piece of fabric. So I'll take that out. Make sure that that matches there. And hold it tight. That way we can try to be sure to have our joints nice. I have some that are off a little bit, but that is the joy of working with fabric. It's going to wiggle on you. And I have put the row of blocks on this side and the sashing over here. It does seem to work a little easier that way. Earlier they were trying to mesh together and I couldn't control them as well as I wanted to. But we are getting to the short rows of this quilt. And I can tell you from what I've seen of it so far, putting the rows together, it is gorgeous. And heavy. And I don't even have a space large enough to even take a picture of it. It's so big. So I'm going to have to find somebody with an upstairs so I can use their banister to get a good picture. And I will post that. Getting closer. My voice is getting weaker. Sometimes these dark pieces you can't hardly figure out where one starts and the other one stops. But even doing the rows, you've got to label, label, label because it's easy to turn them upside down. I managed to not do that, but I can see where it's possible to do it. Next to the last block, okay, we're almost done with this one. Then I'm going to step over here and press it. But before I do, I'll show you which direction I press everything, because it did make things go together a little easier. Okay, that's all of that one. Pull all this back out of there. Now on the sashing that was between the blocks, I pressed everything in. So therefore when you do your sashing, these blocks go out. So in on this side and out on that side. Let me press this real quick and we will attach it to the rest of the quilt. And while pressing this sashing, I do press to the sashing. There's enough bulk already on the quilt blocks. We don't need to try to squeeze more in. Almost done. I haven't forgotten you or lost you, I hope. Okay, now I'm going to grab the rest of this monster. Move my sashing out of the way. Or border, I'm sorry. Before I start to sew, I want to roll this out and make sure I have everything in the correct fashion. Once again, we're putting the sashing on the bottom and a row of blocks on top. And you are going to be amazed when you see what I have to work with here. There we go. Massive amount of fabric. We're going to do the best we can with it. This will be our last row. And then we'll see if we can put a border on. I will tell you that what I did that made things a lot easier for me, try putting like 3 rows together and then 3 more rows together and join them and then add this last one. This is a lot of fabric to move around. And if you're trying to work on a dining room table or a small sewing room, you will be crowded. But it is going to be so pretty. Wrangle this around where we can make sure we're getting a good seam. Still need to watch your points. 1/4 inch seam. I'm on my 4th needle and I can already tell that it's getting on the dull side because my machine is getting loud. Try to pull this out of here so I know what I'm working with. A lot of quilt. I'm thinking I'm going to have this one quilted with wool batting or bamboo because either of those will be a lot lighter. Of course, if you live up north, you might want it a heavier quilt, but just remember you have to move this and sleep under it. We're just going to keep sewing. I really like it when we get to the parts like the log cabin where you just have a straight line. You don't have any points to match up. I will suggest you stop and rest your shoulders every so often because mine are getting pretty tired. I've been working on this several hours today. A lot of maneuvering. Let's match these seams up again. Try to keep those little pieces from getting flipped. feels like we might be getting close to the end. Remember, these are really close to 9 feet. Very helpful on this if you use needle down. I can almost see the end of the row. And I'm really sorry that I don't have any place at all in here where the camera is so you can see the entire quilt. But by the time you get to this point, there will be pictures of it on Facebook. Just a few minutes, we can take all of these little post-its off, because we'll know where our 8 rows are. I hope you've enjoyed making this as much as I have. I would have enjoyed it more if I'd not been in such a hurry to get it made. But it has been an enlightening experience. I've never made anything with this many pieces and this large. So that's a giant combination. Okay, I am going to hop over here and press this real quick, and then we'll see about getting at least one of the borders on the side, just so we know how it's going to work out. Excuse me just a minute. Needs a really, really good press, but we'll just wing it for now. almost done. Okay. I think we'll remove all of our little notes as we go, so I can remember which side I'm sewing. Fabric K is our first skinny border. Make sure I turned it the right direction. I did not. So let's try this again. I think it likes where it was. Okay. Make sure your seam is on the outside. Got too excited here. And as soon as I get this started a little, I'm going to go down and attach the opposite end so we can kind of make sure that it stretches itself as it goes if that's what it needs. This piece was cut to 96.5 inches long. So let's remove these as we go. I wanted to be sure that I had everything going in the right direction, and I hope that I accomplished that. So let's stretch this out as we go. Get an idea of whether the instructions were correct. I'm sure they are. Everything else has been correct. This is just an added check. Yep, looks like we're good. So let's continue on. It probably wouldn't be a bad idea, and I didn't do it, and I'm not going to go back right now, but for you, I would find the center point of the border and the center point of the quilt and put a clip there just to keep things in check. we can just do straight sewing. I do like to put the borders on the sides first and then the top and bottom. I like the placement of the seam better. Personal preference, do it however suits you. And if my memory serves me, the top and bottom of this fabric gets cut to 99.5 inches. I don't like having pieced borders. If I'm buying fabric, I make sure I get enough to cut my borders off first, so I just have one long piece, and then I cut my other pieces out. Just keep those lined up. Not playing well. When I get ready to do the other side, I will add some clips along to help hold that in place. Getting close to the end. Now this one gives you your measurements for the border, but if you're making a quilt and you don't know what size you need to cut the border, do not measure from the outside edge of your quilt. That is always going to be a little longer than the center. You want to measure from the center down to get the correct amount. Because if you go with what it's showing on the outside edges, you're going to have a roughly border. Getting close. Closer and closer. Okay. So now you can see the one side of the border. And I'm sorry I can't do it all, but I will take a picture and post it so you can see more. But your instructions on this page shows you exactly what sizes to cut and how to place it. And if you've done any borders at all, I'm sure you will not have a problem. If you can get through all of this, putting the borders on is a piece of cake. I expect to see some finished projects. If you have any questions, please let me know. Thank you.